And welcome to another Saturday live stream session. My name is Paul Tobey. Thanks for joining me for another one of these sessions. Just a quick shout out to everybody who's already joined the chat. And if that's not you yet, please go and do that. So we've got a bunch of people joining the chat so far. Lawrence, Emoti, Keith, Ira, Dawn, James, Mark, Allison, Fritz, Sergio, Philip, and Alan. And for everybody else that's on the live stream that hasn't checked in on the chat yet, please go and do that. But good morning to you, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Today's session is all about 2/5s, which, if you really think about it, that's really what jazz is. It's like 85% of what we do in jazz can be summed up by some form of a 2/5 progression using cycle of fifths. And today I wanted to just focus on the difference between major 2/5s and minor 2/5s. We're going to talk about some scales and some voicings. And I've picked, I think, the perfect tune to do this because the entire A section is just a series of 2/5s. And it sticks pretty much to the key of C minor. And the tune is called Everything Happens to Me. Just before we get started, I'm going to play a little bit in just a second, but I wanted to do a quick sound check. So let me know, first of all, if you can hear my voice okay. And then let me play a few chords on the piano. And let me know if the piano sounds okay. We've had some challenges in the past with sound check, starting to do tutorial and playing when the sound wasn't quite right. So if you could just give me some feedback, great. Sergio and Don says, all sounds good. So we're off and running. The first thing I'm gonna do, as usual, is post a link to this wonderful piece of sheet music that I have actually written out in full, lucky you. It's my voicings to Everything Happens to Me. Let me post that now in the chat, and I'm going to pin it right to the top so that it's there throughout the session. Somebody go quickly and download that and let me know if you were able to retrieve the download, because yeah, in the past we've had some challenges with that too. While you go and do that, I'm going to post it on the screen. And as you can see, it's a complete arrangement. Now, what I want you to listen for when I play, and I'm going to remove the sheet music from the screen because I can't scroll while I play. But while I do, what I want you to listen for is the difference between the major 2/5, which is D minor to G7, which you're going to see in the second bar, versus the D half diminished seventh to G7 flat 9, that you'll see in the fourth bar. So the entire A section alternates back and forth between a major 2/5 going to C major or a minor 2/5 going to C minor. So listen for the difference between those two, because even the major 2/5 goes to C minor. It doesn't actually go to C major. So you should be able to discern the difference. The other thing is too, the reason why it does this in this particular tune is because the melody dictates the 2/5s. If it wasn't for the melody, it might be all major or all minor, but the melody gets kind of stuck in there. So it's really important to hear that and hear the difference. Now, it's an AABA structure. So I'm going to play the A section twice, and then it skips to a bridge, which is first in E flat, then it switches to D major, and then back to C minor at the end. So I'm going to shut the microphone off and play. While I do that, let me say a quick hello to a couple other people that have joined us, Budika and Isidorio, and a few other people as well. All right, let me shut the microphone off. I'm going to play. Go grab your sheet music, and I'll see you when I get back. right, so just a couple of comments and just a quick hello to Ben and Rich and Peter and Jerry. Thanks for joining us again. Nice to see the regulars here. A couple of comments came in. Love the block chord voicings. Things like that are really fun to do. And really all it is just pulling the notes from the scale and going up or down the scale. You kind of get used to those things. They fall underneath the fingers after a while, and they're not really that difficult to do. I think what really makes it is the rhythm. So if you're doing a 2-5 in B flat, then a 2-5 in C major. It just kind of makes a nice sound as long as you've got that swing rhythm happening. If you just did block chords without rhythm, it kind of doesn't work nearly as well. Hey, Jamie, how are you doing? Greetings from where? Aguas Calientes. I don't know if I pronounced that right or not. Anyway, welcome. All right, let's get down to it. Let me quickly throw the sheet music up on the screen. Hopefully you were able to go and download that. I haven't heard... Oh, Peter did say he got the PDF. Took a few attempts due to resource limits. Yeah, we've had some troubles with that. I'm not sure. I tried with the server guys 100 times to sort out that, but it's a lot of bandwidth when everybody goes and does the same thing at the same time. So if you had a timeout limit, then or resource limit, just go and download it sometime throughout this live stream. You have plenty of time. All right. Let me pull the screenshot up here again. So what I wanted to point out, just first off, is if you're looking at this piece of sheet music, there is a way to kind of think about it. So here's the way I do it. The first thing is you've got 8 bars to the first section, and let's write down here to the first time ending, okay? So the way that I think about it is you've got the first bar, so this is bar 1, and bar 3, and bar 5, and bar 7 are all the same thing. It's a 2-5 in B flat. So C minor 7 to F7, or example down here, we've used the tritone substitution. So C minor 7 to B7 sharp 11. And then every other bar is a 2-5. It's either a major 2-5 or a minor 2-5. So bar 2 is a major 2-5, this one right here. Then bar 4 is a minor 2-5. You can see D half diminished 7 to G7. Then bar 6 is another major 2-5, this one here. And then bar 8 is a turnaround. So if you're looking for simple ways to memorize tunes, especially this one, that's the best way to look at it. If you wanted to stretch it into 4 bars, basically you would go from here to here, and each 4-bar section, the first 2-5 is major, and the second 2-5 is minor. Same thing for the next 2 bars. First 2-5 is major, second 2-5 is minor, but it's really just a turnaround that leads back to the top of the tune. So why, is my question, does it all sound so like there's so many chords when there really isn't? There's just a series of 2, 5, 3, 6, 2, 5, 3, 6, 2, 5, 3, 6, 2, 5, 3, 6. That's basically how it works in the key of B flat. So let's just go from the top of the tune. And I think it's a good idea to learn these voicings. If you actually look at the first voicing, it's just 3rd, 5th, 7th, and 9th. And obviously, many of you can read sheet music, so I don't really have to point this out, but I'm talking about this chord right here. Just 3, 5, 7, and 9, and then 1 and 7 in the left hand. So there's shell voicings in the left. And then in the right hand, you've got some inner voices just going to the flat 9. And then the same voicing again for D minor. Except this chord is the tritone substitution of G7. So G flat 7, sharp 11. Okay, let me erase this so you can read it. Let's do it again. Learn this voicing for D flat 7, sharp 11. Basically what it is, it's the upper structure triad, which is E flat over D flat. Except you got the 3rd and the 7th down here. So E flat over a basically D flat 7 shell voicing, except it has the 3rd. I like playing the B natural with the right hand. Let's go back to the top. And then same thing. I like this inner voice here, moving from F7 to E flat 7. And then a 2-5 of minor. Now I said earlier that the melody dictates whether it's major or minor. Take a look. That flat on A flat is the 5th of D half diminished 7th chord. Okay? Inner voice. And then another C minor 11th chord. Now, check this chord out right here. Very important that you hear this chord right here. It goes right from the root, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. And that's a root position C minor 11th chord, which works really well because the melody is the F, which is the 11th. Listen to that chord. If you actually went up the scale, it kind of works in certain instances, in others not. But basically, this root position is a really nice sound. And then just an E flat diminished 7th chord. And then a major 2-5. And then G7 sharp 11. So this is A over G. That's how I think of sharp 11 chords. It's like go up a whole tone and make a major chord out of it. So A major over G7. And then a B7 sharp 11 chord, tritone substitution of F7. And here's our turnaround. So we're going to go to, I don't know why it says D minor. Should be B flat. Change that in your scores, please. So this is just a B flat 6 chord. Or major 7, whatever. And then 4, 3, 6. So the turnaround, if you're going back to 2, so consider this to be 2 minor 7 of B flat, the turnaround is always something like that. So this is 1, 4, 3, 6. Back to 2. And that's how that works. 1, 4, 3, 6, or the tritone substitution, which is flat 3. All right. Let me erase all that and play it. second time ending. So interestingly enough, I actually don't go to B here. I use the pedal F just to not really feel like the tune is ending. I don't like to put the tonals down until the very end of the tune. Okay, all of that is nice. I like this, by the way. If you actually look at the bridge, I need to scroll up a bit, though, I think, so you can see that. Let me check. Yeah. Let me just do that. Right. So that you should be able to see. And I want you to hear this right here, this bar. So from the bridge, inner voice. I like that downward motion. So just like the beginning right here when we did 1, 4, 3, 6, that's what this is. It's 1, 4, 3, 6 of F instead of C. Okay? And I like that sort of interlude of sound. And so on and so forth. So that's basically, well, let me finish off the bridge, I guess. So at least we have a full going through of the song before I start tackling the 2/5s and what, I mean, we've already done some chord voicings for our minor 2/5s. I want to talk a lot about scales and things like that as well. But let me just finish off the bridge first. Hopefully I can fit it all on your screen because there's a page break, of course. So what we're going to do is just go from bar, whatever this bar is, 11, right through to the end of the bridge, which is here. So a 2/5 of E flat. Another 2/5 of E flat. Just stay on E flat. And then switch to 2/5 of D major. Love this chord voicing, by the way. Learn that one right here. And the reason why I want you to learn it is because it sounds great. It's got basically an F9, F major chord with a 9, and then there's your third at the bottom here. And then this line cliche. Give me some feedback on the arrangement to see if you actually like the chord voicings. I mean, there's a billion others that we could use, but these are the ones that I wrote out, and I think they work really well for this tune. A couple more people chiming in about the PDF. Obviously, your questions are welcome as well. I'm going to go back to the sheet music now, and we're going to discuss the 2/5s and what to do with them. And some ideas, not just on voicings, but on chords, on scales as well. So let me take a screenshot again at the top of the tune. Okay, so we are focused on let's just do the first 4 bars. So we talked about this voicing, which is just the shell voicing in the left hand and then thirds in the right hand. Now, in order to comp, one of the suggestions that I would make for this major 2/5 is when you comp, instead of playing the root, just play either just the B flat or play a D up against the E flat here. So you're duplicating the octave, but there's a minor second in the bottom, so it makes a nice sound. And there's our block chords again. Typically when I play block chords, I'm only playing 1 or 2 notes in the left hand. And mess around with that a little bit. Just kind of go up the scale. So the scale, obviously, for C minor, we're in the key of B flat. So B flat major scale. And all we're doing is starting on the second, which is the C minor. So same scale as B flat major 7, just starting on a different note. So this is called a Dorian scale. And then when you hit the F7 flat 9, that's a completely different scale. I want to skip that for right now, and I want to go on to the D minor chord, which is the same as the C minor chord, except it's up a whole tone, except now we're temporarily in the key of C major. So interesting, it goes from minor So this is a major 2/5 of C major. Okay, so the scale in the key of C major is this. Over D, it's this. Okay? D Dorian, just like C Dorian that we did earlier. Now, the 5/7 chord that we're going to use for both those, first the F7 flat 9 and then the G7 flat 9, or in this case D flat 7, which is the tritone. Let's just toss that out momentarily and just put G7 flat 9, because that's really what it should be. And the reason why it's a flat 9 is because the sharp 9 is in the melody. This note here, B flat, that's sharp 9 of G7. So it contains a flat 9 and a sharp 9. Also a +5 as well. Okay? Now the scale to use for those is very interesting. So whether you're playing, well actually in all cases where you're playing a flat 9, the scale is essentially this. If we start on F7, start on this note, play the flat 9, then the sharp 9, and then the rest of the scale remains the same as if it were in the key. So the key is B flat, start on flat 9, sharp 9, and then continue your B flat scale. That's your scale. Now the interesting thing about that scale is it contains 8 notes instead of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Back to 1. Same thing for the G7 chord. Where you're starting on G, flat 9, sharp 9, and then the rest of the C major scale. So those are our 2 scales that we're going to use in the situation where it's a flat 9 chord. Okay, so C minor to F7, D minor 7 to G7 flat 9. Now, if we continue on in the tune, the only difference of any of the scales is going to be this one right here. So a minor 2/5 always uses, in most cases, a half diminished chord in front of it. So D half diminished seventh, this is the root position. D, F, A flat, and C. That's a D half diminished seventh chord, or what some people call a D minor 7 flat 5. So D minor 7 with a flat 5. The reason why I call it half diminished is because the first part is diminished, the second part isn't. So it's half diminished. Okay? Now, what scale do you play over that? Because that's the only outlier in this whole thing. So remember, a major 2/5 scale is C minor in the key of B flat. So going to B flat major, C minor to F7 flat 9. Now, you could have played an F major 7th chord, but I prefer in 2/5s of major to play flat 9s because it's more dissonant and it sounds nicer. Instead of, it's just the flat 9 creates a different sound. So all of the chords, all of the dominant 7th chords in this first part, that's flat 9. Second one has a flat 9. This one has a flat 9, flat 9. Every dominant 7th chord has a flat 9 in it. It's just a better sound. Now, let's get back to our D half diminished 7th chord. Root position. Now, what you do with this is, because it's a 2/5 of C minor, you're going to play a C minor. Now, the interesting thing about that scale is it's exactly the same scale as your G7 chord. So G7 went G, flat 9, sharp 9, go up the scale. Because we're going to C minor, right? This is a minor 2/5. The same scale, except start on D. Right? Same scale. And that's going to make your life a whole lot easier. Now, again, the only difference between the dominant 2/5 going to major and going to minor is one note. So going to major is an E natural, going to minor is a minor third. That's the minor 2/5, this is the major 2/5. And this kind of frees you up to do all kinds of cool things. So if we're soloing on C minor, let's play C minor, soloing from the top of the tune. My mistake. C minor scale to F7. Going to minor 7. And then minor 7. Listen to that. D minor, D half diminished 7th. Right? This is our, it's almost like half whole, right? Half whole, half. Then, as somebody who's practicing soloing on minor 2/5s, just mess around with those two scales and find your way through them. check in and see if there's any questions. Comments. You can read them. Alan says, try a flat 9 in the bass under that A minor chord you called out. What A minor chord? We went through this last week, Alan, when you're speaking one language and I'm speaking another. Where's the A minor chord that we're talking about? I'm not sure. Clarify, please. And I'll do exactly what you ask. I don't know where A minor is. In fact, I don't see it in the entire arrangement. So maybe it's just a slip of the finger. You can let me know. I can see that people are listening intently, and just let me know if you're getting something out of it, if you want me to repeat something, or you have a question about something. And that's what the chat area is for. And we'll sort out with Alan what he's getting at in just a moment, as soon as I hear back from him. So DZ says, I didn't quite get where the one note difference applies between major and minor. Was it on the 2 or the 5? It's on both, actually. So originally I said the only outlier was the half diminished 7th chord, but that's not quite true. It's also the third of the chord for the dominant 7th chords, except instead of thinking about it like the third, it's like going to the third of the root. So let me clarify. So G7, if we're going to major, uses root, flat 2, sharp 2, which is the flat 9, sharp 9, and then third, and the rest is just C major scale. Going to C major. If we're going to minor, the note that changes is the E natural, because you can't use an E natural going to C minor, because that's the third. It's the most important chord tone of any chord, which is the third. So we're using E flat. So okay. Now the half diminished is different because instead of using a major scale and we're going from D major, we're going from D minor 7 to G7 to C major. To G7 to C major. Minor is different. We're using exactly the same scale as the G7 going to minor, which contains the E flat. Except we're starting on D. So D half diminished 7. Okay? I hope that answers that question. Vincent, how should I think of the scale you play on the D half diminished 7th? I don't quite get it. So I just explained that. So you don't have to think of it at all. That's the good news. So any shortcut in jazz is the kind of repetition that we're using to create a scale that can be borrowed from somewhere else. And in this case, we're just borrowing the scale from the G7 going to minor. So G7 going to minor contains the E flat. So 1, flat 9, sharp 9, and then C minor scale. That's exactly the same scale you use for D half diminished 7th. If we started it here, it's the same scale, just starting on a different note. So that's how you should think of D half diminished seventh. Don't think of that at all. Think of it more like a G7 flat 9 chord going to minor. Okay. Keep in mind, if you're going to major, it's an E natural of C. Going to minor, it's an E flat. Those are the notes that change for the scales. And that's the only notes that change. Okay, Vincent says, good, I got it, perfect. Fritz, playing an F minor over D minor 7 flat 5 or A flat minor over G7 flat 9 also works. Yes. So all you're doing is thinking about the top 3 notes of the chord. So it's like F minor over D. And in the case of G7 flat 9, an A flat chord doesn't really work. And I'll tell you why. Because it contains a C natural, which should not be in the mix on a G7 flat 9 chord. So I like your thinking. It might be a way to think about it, but it doesn't quite work because the C natural can't work. It creates a flat 9 with the third of the chord, the harshest interval in jazz. So A flat doesn't work. Sounds like that. It's just wrong. Okay? D half diminished seventh, F minor over D. That's a good way to think about it, but this is not. I would think of the G 7 flat 9 chord as a B diminished chord over G. So 3, 5, 7, and flat 9. Okay. Oh, we got some nice discussion going now. Paul says, got an idea. If referring to a position in the tune, also mention the bar number. Yeah, I could do that, except we've really just been focusing on 8 bars of the head section. So I think it's obvious which bar number they are. But I get your point. I have done that in other tutorials. And if it's helpful, when I think it's super helpful, I will actually use the bar number. Perfect. Laugh out loud. At harshest interval in jazz, I've been looking carefully for those intervals. Well, you know, the interesting thing is that if you look at a G7 flat 9 chord, it does contain a flat 9 with the root of the chord. So the A flat creates a flat 9 with the root. But because there's a whole bunch of other notes in between, and depending on how you voice it, it kind of works because the root is not that important in a chord, believe it or not. It's important to the bass player, but not to everybody else. What's important to everybody else is the third and the seventh, which we call chord tones. If it creates a flat 9 with the chord tone, throw it out. You can't use it. If it creates a flat 9 with the root, that's very often acceptable. Right? But listen to the voicing. It changes everything. Okay. Yes. Avoid flat 9s when they create flat 9s with the third or the seventh of the chord in all cases. All cases, okay? Now, are there instances where it might be acceptable? And the answer is yes, but in the harshest of circumstances where it's completely intended, but it's in the mix of chords that surround it. But if it's a dominant seventh chord, stay away from flat 9s from the third and the seventh. Well, actually, any chord, really. Minor chord or major. Avoid. Avoid, avoid, avoid. It's interesting. I once did an elective in my university, And the goal, or that the actual final, was to write 3 original tunes and arrangements for big band, which is a 17-piece orchestra: trumpets, trombones, saxophones, and rhythm section. And so I did. I wrote some tunes, and then I arranged them. And then I really didn't meet with the professor at all. So it's not like he taught me anything. I just did it and then took the work in for review. And in an hour, all he did was he went through the entire arrangement and circled all the flat nines that were against the third and the seventh, sometimes even which were intended. But to him, a flat nine with the third or the seventh of any chord is just a bad idea. And so even if it was in a succession of block chords, to him it was just wrong. But that's the only thing he did. So the only thing that I ever remembered from that entire year was that you're not supposed to put flat nines against thirds and sevenths. Okay. The extension of this is, and all we're doing is just discerning between major and minor 2/5s. In this tune, it's the difference between D minor 7 to G7 flat 9 or D half diminished 7th to G7 flat 9. That's the only difference. That's how you should think about it. It's not like, oh, we got to G7. That's cool, but you can still use the flat 9 and the sharp 9 of major. So if I'm playing in the key of C major, I'm still thinking flat 9, sharp 9. So it's like a shortcut. You don't really have to learn too many things. You just need to learn that one sort of flat 9 scale. And the only difference is whether you're going to major or minor, should you use an E natural or an E flat. And that's really, when I said, I think I called this major 2/5s versus minor 2/5s, there's not a lot of difference between the two if you really think about it, especially in jazz. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of people that would say, oh, there's a huge difference between major and minor 2/5s. Yeah, maybe, but in the context of what we're talking about, it's just a few notes difference. Really, one, just the A, think about in the key of C, think about the A flat and the E flat. Those are the only two notes really that change. Okay. Now, what I would do if I was practicing, and I think it's important to practice both, but let's just go with minor 2/5s. So if I was practicing and working on my D half diminished 7th chord to G7 flat 9, the first thing I would do is I would comp for myself if I'm practicing scales or soloing in the right hand. So let me give you a really good couple of chords for both of those. So D half diminished 7th, I like this voicing. Now the only difference between root position of D half diminished 7th is one note. Move the F to the G. You get this chord, which is really nice. Okay? And then if I switch to the G7 flat 9, I'm going to go here. Interestingly enough, those two voicings are the same. They're just 1, 2, 3, 4. They're just a minor third apart. Now, the reason why I like this for G7 flat 9 is because it contains the tritone, the sharp 9, and the sharp 5. It doesn't even contain the flat 5 or flat 9. You don't even need it. So go from here, right? 1, D, G, A flat, C, F, B flat, B, E flat. You can even use this for D half diminished seventh if you wanted to, if you need a different one. It's also A half diminished seventh, which are interchangeable. And then once in a while, resolve to C minor. I like this for C minor chord because it contains the 6th and the 9th. It's also an F7 chord with a 9th and a 13th. Okay, so from here, D half diminished 7th, to G7 flat 9, to C minor 7. Nice, right? 1, 2, 3. And the reason why these are great is because they all contain fourths. You can even play it without this note and you get fourths, fourths, fourths. And that's why those voicings work really well. They work. Nice. It's a very modern sound. Okay. And that's how I would practice the left hand. Find voicings that contain a fourth and just use this as an example. And then use those scales in the right hand and try to put the two together. And then do the easier scale, which is D minor 7. Now, if I'm using a minor 7th chord instead of minor 7 flat 5, I like this voicing, which is the same voicing as the C minor, except it's on G7. Go up a whole tone. So this is a nice voicing for a D minor 7th chord. Okay, why? Because it contains the 6th and the 9th. And then if you're switching to G7 flat 9, use the other voicing that we just did. So look how close those are. You're just changing 2 notes. To major. And this is our major chord. So this would have been minor. This is major. You can also use the 5th if you wanted to, but just the E flat changes to E natural. So D minor 7 to G7 flat 9 to C major 7. that's really the only difference between the two. And I like this tune for the very reason that it doesn't deviate from our minor 2/5s to major 2/5s by key. It only deviates in terms of the difference of notes. So D minor 7 to G7, or D half diminished 7 to G7 flat 9. Okay? Amodi comments on music education with no imagination or ears. Yeah, his name is Andrew. I won't give you his last name. But yeah, I didn't really get a lot out of it. He just circled a bunch of flat 9s and gave me an A+, and that was the end of that. I was wondering if someone was ever going to ask me that, if I'm double jointed. So I'm not double jointed in the sense that my hand can go backwards to like my arm like people, but my thumbs are double jointed. So it's really weird. Like most people with their thumb, they can do this. They can go maybe this far with their thumb. Mine kind of goes all the way back. Don't freak out, right? Because it doesn't hurt. It's just always been like that. It kind of bends over backwards. This does not help playing the piano, by the way, because my thumb, if it was bent over like this, doesn't really work. You can't play like that. It's always, the thumb is just sideways. You're playing with this part of your thumb, which is the bottom part, right? If you look at the just above the keys here, you're playing with this part of your thumb, which is the underside. And if your thumb is double jointed like that, it does weird things. So I don't play like that. So it doesn't help me at all to be double jointed, but thanks for asking. I was wondering when someone is going to point that out, because a lot of times when I do thumbs up, it looks weird, right? Because my thumbs are too far back. And anyway. Give me 1 second, just checking on something. Okay. Timing. It's noon, for me anyway. So it's been an hour. I hope you got a lot out of it. Just let me know if you have or not, if it's been worth your while hanging out with me today. I think it's such a simple concept, but sometimes a little bit difficult to grasp. And I have had a few questions that helped us refine our thought processes. So if you got something out of it, I would appreciate not just a comment here, but also a comment below the video. Some of you do that, by the way, from time to time. It helps to put comments below the video in the typical YouTube comments section. So if you have something that you want to feedback, please do it there. You can also do it in the chat for now, which does not help with optimization. Thorne says, you mentioned flat 9 in these voicings, but isn't it a sharp 9? Well, it's both. So one way that I think of flat 9s is as soon as you put a flat 9 in, the sharp 9 becomes available. It's when you have a natural 9 on G7 that you can't use a sharp 9 because it creates, this flat 9, right? Major 7th, right? Okay? So, well, it's actually a flat 9. Sorry, it's a major 7th, right? So, anyway, the way that I think of flat 9s is that as soon as you have them, you can have a sharp 9. So when you say, well, isn't it a sharp 9? Well, it's both. As soon as you have a sharp 9, you can also have a flat 9. And that's evident in the bridge where it goes from F minor 7 to the sharp 9 of B flat 7, and the melody goes to the flat 9. This came right out of soloing. This is a bebop's paradise, right? Right? Flat 9, sharp 9 to the 3rd of E flat. So they made a melody out of those two notes. That's a very jazz thing to do. So try to remember that. Flat 9 and sharp 9 are both available when one comes before the other. Oh, good. I'm glad. Great class. Tons of new information. Good. Very useful. Good. I like the shortcut approach on the sharp 9. Good. Thank you. Very cool. Flat 9 and sharp 9 go together. Got it. Excellent. Okay, we're getting somewhere. George says, beginning jazz, blues, older, hacker. Interesting to see how experienced jazz players think. Yeah, we're definitely a breed apart for sure. Need to get more familiar with extensions. Well, the simple way to look at extensions, George, is that every note in a scale has a number. So in a C major scale, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, in jazz, we think of them as extensions when you go up in thirds. So 1, 3, 5, 7. This is no longer 2. It's 9. Remember, in the scale, it was 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But if you go up in thirds, which is tertian harmony, you get chords. 1, 3, 5, 7. And then 2 becomes 9. 4 becomes 11. And 6 becomes 13. Can't use this note on a C major 7 chord because, yes, creates a flat 9 with a third of the chord. You can use sharp 9, sharp 11 though. And that's the only thing you need to learn. 9s, 11s, and 13s. There really isn't anything else. Yeah, you'll see a plus sign every once in a while, which is a plus 5, but it's also a flat 13. So, same thing. So yeah, that's the way to think about it, especially extensions. Anyway, thanks for joining the class. It's nice to see you here. Lauren said, is there a similar shortcut approach to a flat 9 chord? That's a broad question, Lawrence. In terms of scale, in terms of chord voicing, let me know. Allison says, awesome. Rich says, we'll review all this later after sun rises. Thank you. You're welcome. A breed apart and loving it. Absolutely. And George, you're welcome. All right, let me play one more time. And stick around for this because I'm going to play it very differently than the first time. I usually play twice during these sessions. So for those of you that have joined us mid-session and didn't hear the opening performance, and thank you for the comments about Nancy. It's been a rough couple of weeks for Nancy. Our dear Nancy is not doing so well. I appreciate that. I'm going to take the sheet music off the screen, kill the vocal mic so we don't get any feedback in terms of reverb or double shots. And I'll play the tune again and play it differently than the first time. And for those of you that might want a transcription of this, let me know. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. Wasn't perfect, but I was having fun. Sometimes I like to do that, just throw caution to the wind and just play whatever. A lot of dissonance, a lot of notes. It doesn't always work out, but hey, that's the beauty of jazz. At least you have fun doing it. And that's really the whole point of everything that we do here at Jazz Mental. Yeah, we kind of run out of time for questions. So for those of you that have asked a question that didn't get an answer, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Just come back next Saturday, same time, same place, and we'll handle any questions that you have and any explanations that you need. I don't like to go too far past the hour, and we're at that point where I think I've taken up enough of your valuable time. So I'll see you same time, same place next week. For those of you that have sent well wishes to Nancy, it's much appreciated. She has been struggling, and I'm very concerned about her. So any prayers that you have are very welcomed. And for everyone who's chimed in today in the chat, asking questions or making comments, you are the ones that make these Saturdays fun for everyone, and me included. I have a blast doing it. Grab the sheet music before I take it down. The link is at the top of the chat. And we will see everybody next week. Paul Tobey here from Jazz Mental. Take care.